Of Department Institutional Advancement at Unisa. I'll be the program director tonight for this Simiso Nkwanyana Third Memorial Lecture. While we are standing, I'm going to request that we sing together the national anthem. Thank you very much. We may take our seats. We are going to take this opportunity to play Unisa's corporate video so that we introduce to you the University of South Africa.
Whatever the setbacks of the moment, nothing can stop us now. Whatever the difficulties, Africa shall be at peace. However improbable it may sound to the skeptics, Africa will prosper.
More than anything, Unisa must be celebrated as a pioneer of the distance education model, an enduring gift not only to South Africa, the continent, but to the human civilization in the knowledge arena the world over.
Education is the light in a dark room. It's the spark of a dream, a passport to the future, and the seed of generational change. Through education, we reflect on yesterday and define tomorrow. Rooted in South Africa and the African continent, Unisa can truly claim to be the African university in the service of humanity. Unisa stands at the pinnacle of education through open distance e-learning, with a footprint of students in more than 100 countries worldwide. Since the founding of the university in 1873 as an examining body, We have been a trailblazer. Unisa is the first and only institution in South Africa to carry our country's name with pride and the first public university in the world to exclusively teach by means of distance education, an ever-changing dynamic university with a global reach. Unisa's history spans the entire modern history of South Africa, opening up a world of academic study opportunities for former activists and struggle heroes, thought leaders, business people, legal experts, acclaimed entertainers, and sports stars. The university takes pride in almost 1 million alumni, with 10 alumni chapters internationally making their mark in diverse fields and capabilities. Some of the noteworthy alumni include President Nelson Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, who is also the Chancellor and custodian of the university's Calabash Awards, current and is a major landmark of the capital city. The Florida campus in Johannesburg is Unisa's Science Campus, housing state-of-the-art infrastructure and laboratory equipment. Unisa has 6 regional hubs including Ethiopia and multiple centers across the country. We have embraced the fact that we need to adapt quickly to the fast-paced higher education environment of the 21st century, and this is reflected in our management style and leadership practice. In articulating her vision, the new Principal and Vice Chancellor of the University of South Africa, the first woman to be appointed at the helm of Unisa, Professor Puleng Linkabola, shared that Unisa is well placed to address society's most demanding challenges by using research to meaningfully transform the lives of those in our communities. To this end, Unisa is working on the following catalytic niche areas. Marine Studies. As a discipline, Marine Studies covers field-specific studies like marine ecology and biology to policy-related studies like marine spatial planning and coastal economies. Many other areas of marine research and studies are covered in this niche area. Aviation and Aeronautical Studies. Aviation and Aeronautical Studies covers specializations in areas as diverse as aeronautical engineering and aerospace safety, and South Africa's 18 airports forms a major role player for passengers and goods transitioning to and from our country. This is a niche that supports a major component of the country's economy. Automotive Studies. The South African automotive industry is projected to grow from 600,000 to 1.4 million vehicles a year in production. There is major potential to be explored in Unisa's commitment to automotive studies. In 2022, students from the Department of Mechanical Engineering participated in the Sasol Solar Challenge with their solar-powered car that travels from Johannesburg to Cape Town without using a single drop of fuel. Energy Studies. Unisa's Institute for Development of Energy for African Sustainability specializes in designing chemical processes, reducing material and energy consumption, as well as carbon dioxide emissions. Space Studies and Square Kilometer Array. Unisa has been extensively involved in the $1 billion Square Kilometer Array project since 2012. The Unisa Observatory, situated on the main campus, is a modern, well-equipped facility housing a 14-inch telescope where the College of Science, Engineering and Technology offers undergraduate courses in astrophysics and astronomy with specialization up to PhD level. Fourth Industrial Revolution and Digitalization. The fourth industrial revolution can be described as the advent of cyber-physical systems, involving entirely new capabilities for people and machines. Examples include genome editing and new forms of machine intelligence. The College of Graduate Studies will support and promote studies into 4IR and digitalization, while the Graduate School of Business Leadership presents a short learning program on big data. Natural Sciences. The simplest definition of biotechnological studies is applied biology. Through the application of biological knowledge and techniques to develop products or services, Unisa's College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences is one of the main partners in the African Biogenome Project, a coordinated Pan-African effort piloting a project with a key objective of sequencing 100,000 endemic species. Health and/or Pharmaceutical Studies. The Department of Health Studies is prepared for the challenge of equipping their students with research skills and expertise in the field of health and pharmaceutical studies. The UNESCO Unisa Africa Chair in Nanoscience and Nanotechnology is leading the international research into the nano delivery of medicinal drugs, including African herbal medicine. The College of Law offers an elective undergraduate model on medical law. Feminist, womanist, Wusadi theorizations. In the College of Human Sciences, the Institute for Gender Studies, the College of Education and the Graduate School of Business all contribute to the interdisciplinary research into eliminating gender-based violence, homophobia and transphobia, and discrimination against women in the workplace and the political arena. The Institute also uses education about gender as an effective way to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of women. Student support and co-curricular activities. Unisa is uniquely placed to offer creative and radically innovative ways of enhancing student support. Unisa's College of Graduate Studies has developed a whole range of training programs to assist and encourage students. The Advocacy and Resource Center for Students with Disabilities promotes the principle of access for success, and the Student Development Division provides students with social support and leadership development services. These niche areas find expression in the rich tapestry of art disciplines included in the College of Accounting Sciences, Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, Economic and Management Sciences, Education, Graduate Studies, Human Sciences, Law, Science, Engineering and Technology, the Graduate School of Business Leadership, and the Thabo Mbeki School of Public and International Affairs. As a comprehensive open-distance e-learning institution, Unisa is recognized as a serious player in research globally. From publication and journal output to the number of master's and doctoral graduates, we are moving forwards and upwards. Unisa has made substantial progress in research and innovation, as evidenced by several external and credible scientific ranking systems, with the latest ones, the 2023 Webometrics and Shanghai rankings, placing us in the top 10 universities in the country. As Africa's leading open-distance e-learning university, we can reflect with great pride on the past 150 years of transformational education, and we are confident in our ability to succeed and become a truly high-performance university as we define tomorrow.
Thank you very much. This is the story about University of South Africa. On the 12th of August 2003, Unisa, SACP, ANC, South Africa lost a young leader, Simiso Nkwanyana. Today we once again meet to remember him, his contribution and impact. In him, using the words of Vladimir Lenin, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happens. Simiso Nkwanyana is a founding member of Unisa's SRC from 1995 coordination and 1996 first SRC member. With these few words, I'm going to request that Dr. Mieza ascend the podium to do some remarks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Sanbonan, are you afraid to talk or what? How? It's Friday. Thank you, Program Director. Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of South Africa, Professor Buleng Lenkabula, in absentia, Acting Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of South Africa, Dr. Chivase, Vice Principal, Mr. Motebele, our esteemed keynote speaker, Ambassador Sibusiso Ndebele, Deputy Minister, Dr. Nomalungelo Gina, members of the Nkwanyana family, distinguished panelists, colleagues, honored guests, students, and friends of Unisa. Good evening and welcome. It is a profound privilege to open this year's third Simiso Nkwanyana Memorial Lecture and to welcome you all to the KwaZulu-Natal region. As a province, we are honored to host this important gathering, one that invites us to reflect, to learn, and to draw inspiration from the life and legacy of a leader who dedicated himself to justice, education, and ethical service. Allow me to especially welcome our Vice Chancellor, Professor Lenkabula, in absentia, and Acting Vice Chancellor, Dr. Chivase. We are always grateful for your leadership and your unwavering commitment to strengthening the University of South Africa's presence in all regions, including here in KwaZulu-Natal. To our keynote speaker, Ambassador Ndebele, our panelist, Dr. Nomalungelo Gina, Deputy Minister of the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, colleagues from Unisa, and all our guests here tonight, thank you for taking the time to be part of this gathering. The conversations we will have this evening, especially on ethical leadership, come at a moment when they are needed in every corner of our society, including higher education sector. To the Nkwanyana family, thank you for continuing to share Simiso Nkwanyana's legacy with us. Your presence reminds us that this lecture is not only an academic event, but also a celebration of a life that enriched our nation. To all our program participants, our distinguished guests, partners, and members of the Unisa community, thank you for joining us this evening. Your presence affirms our shared commitment to ethical leadership, transformative education, and the building of a society rooted in integrity and humanity. This memorial lecture arrives at a time when the higher education sector and our country as a whole is called to recenter ethics, accountability, and public trust. We look forward to the valuable insights that will emerge from tonight's address and the ensuing discussions. On behalf of the University of South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal Region, I warmly welcome you. Thank you for honoring this occasion with your time, your wisdom, and your spirit of engagement. May this evening be meaningful, reflective, and transformative for all of us. Ngiyabonga. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mieza, the Regional Director of KwaZulu-Natal Region, Unisa, for your kind words, for the remarks that you've done. The question of ethics is very important in the country at this current point. You will all know what is happening currently at Madlanga Commission. You will all know what is happening at the Ad Hoc Committee. All those questions implies and speaks to the question of ethics. And I think this is what brings us today, specifically the topic that will be engaged by the keynote speaker. Without waste of time, because like I've indicated, we've started a bit later, so I will want to ask that I call to the podium the Acting Vice Principal, Teaching, Learning, Community Engagement, and Student Support from Unisa on behalf of the Principal and Vice Chancellor, Prof. Pulen Lengabula, Dr. Azwi Chivase.
Good evening. Good evening. Thanks so much, Professor Sinukwane, our program director. Let me indicate that I'm going to speak on behalf of our Principal and Vice Chancellor, Professor Pulen Lengabula, and those who know her will know that she speaks very well, you know. So just imagine, forget about my voice and so on. Just think that you are listening to our Principal and Vice Chancellor. Our esteemed keynote speaker, Ambassador Simiso Nkwanyana, we are really honored that you decided to be with us this evening. And also we are grateful because you are going to share with us some of the leadership traits that you installed in the person that we are honoring, Comrade Simiso Nkwanyana. And some of us believed that you really showed him the light and the vision in order to be where we are today. Firstly, as an institution, but also as a country. We appreciate Ms. Nawalungelo Gina, the Deputy Minister of Science and Technology, Mr. Luzipo, the Member of Parliament and Chairperson of Simiso Nkwanyana Center for Alternative Ideas, Mr. Emmanuel Somuka, the MEC for Education in KZN, Non-Tobacco Boys, the Speaker of the Provincial Legislature, and our Vice Principal Operations and Facilities, Mr. Mtebele, Dr. Mieza, the Regional Director here in KwaZulu-Natal. I thought you nearly said KwaZulu-Natal University. Yes, this need to share with you that this is a very critical region for us as Unisa. More especially when we want to anchor the 10 catalytic niche area. Discussions have already started and hopefully they will result in something, more especially around offering of maritime studies. Unisa is committed to that. Special word of welcome to Nkwanyana family. We appreciate that you gave such a leader, such a visionary, and we need to keep his light going on. And as a university, we really do appreciate. I've seen Professor Nkosi, the Executive Dean of College of Human Sciences. She's also committed to doing something with the family and also around this Simiso Nkwanyana Alternative Ideas Institute. So we appreciate that. And as a university, we are saying his vision should not die in our hands. We need to do something true always and keep on honoring him. I also love to welcome Mr. Maimela in the office of the VC. Thank you so much for really reminding us on some of the nitty-gritties in terms of what we need to do for a memorial lecture. We do appreciate. Ms. Jobert, the Deputy Registrar, Student Services, I know that you are going to facilitate, and we believe and we trust you that you will facilitate this session. And colleagues, we need also to acknowledge that as Unisa, we really don't just want to do memorial lecture for memorial lecture. We need to engage with what will be presented, because through that, through the exchange and the engagement, that is when we can move our institution and the country and the world forward. Professor Idilotosotle, I've seen you somewhere. Welcome. We also appreciate your contribution. Dr. Lefase Mwahim, we also acknowledge you. We are also excited that one of our alumni, Silomo Magic, who is a Unisa graduate and Maskandi musician, we really appreciate that. Because for us as an institution, we don't want to be an ivory tower that cannot implement our products and our services back to communities. I know that amongst us we've got a national, provincial, and local representative of the spheres of government. I've also seen Professor Magnet Ntombela, our Unisa alumni. We appreciate that even when you are outside the University of South Africa, you still come and support this great institution. The business community, the various political parties, foundations, civil society, members of Unisa, National SRC, and including the regional SRC, we appreciate that you are here and make a contribution to not let Simiso Nkwanyana's vision die in your hands. All Unisa alumni, our institution, University of South Africa, is a university of the land. And as I'm talking now here, we are in this province. The other team members are in Cape Town, Western Cape, also honoring one of our legend, Dr. Neville Alexander. And hence we say we are the University of the land. This coming week, Wednesday, we will be in Polokwane to honor the legendary Eskia Mpatlele. For us, that is part of our mandate as a public institution, that we have to honor all these people and keep their vision alive. Last week on the 14th, we had a big celebration to celebrate our Chancellor, Dr. Thabo Mbeki's calabash. And we really had to honor the people that carried the light through a very difficult time. We were with Paul Pitangwenya. I think some of you may know him. Our ambassador knows him very well. He shared us with the stories that they were doing in Robben Island, including their teachers. It was a story to listen to. It was a story that we could share, that all of us who are in this space now need to realize and commend the people that went before us. We honored Yvonne Chaka Chaka, we honored the Zinex, and a few people. In order to say to us as Unisa, we cannot forget where we come from. Now this evening, we really want to appreciate the Nkwanyana family, because the idea of a memorial and annual lecture is noble and relevant at all times. We also want to say, in partnership with Unisa and the Nkwanyana Foundation, there are already moves that maybe this region should be named after Simiso Nkwanyana, the building that we have in this region. More especially when we want to develop this region as a critical region in terms of delivering some of our Unisa programs and qualification. I have no doubt in my mind that the examples that we could learn, the commitment that we could learn from Simiso Nkwanyana should still be a flame in us, should still be part of the DNA, because we have seen somebody that was committed to his virtues, somebody that was selflessness and made sacrifice. For some of us, we are the witness to that. His sacrifice, his hard work is paying off. Though he is gone, we are not going to forget him. And we want us to always remember that in terms of the development and the evolution of Unisa, we will always count and call on his name many a time. And you can just imagine the vision that he had. I mean, 1994, 1995, we were just on the brink of democracy. And were we sure where this democracy will be leading us to? Prof. Sinukwane, I think we've become a country in meetings, a country in commissions, and did some of our heroes like Mr. Nkwanyana fought for those? Are we honoring his legacy in that way? We also need to say, in this lecture, apart from acknowledging his greatest achievement, this lecture need really to embed us and remind us of where we are going. Firstly, as Unisa, and secondly, as a country. And we are excited about some of the moves that Unisa has already made. Many of you will know that in terms of global ranking, we are ranked number 8 university in this country out of 26 public universities. That's a great achievement, and we need to commend. We need to commend the current leadership under the leadership of the principal and VC, Professor Puleng Linkavula. We have graduated almost 69,000 students this year. And the undergraduate However, on top of that, we have graduated about 849 master students and 540 PhDs. That's an achievement that some of us think if Mr. Nkwanyama was here, he would say, yes. When I established the SRC, when I wanted the student to have a voice in the management of the institution, this is what I was fighting for. Once more, welcome to this engagement. And it should not be just an ordinary engagement. It must be an engagement that touches our souls, deepens our thinking, and revoke our emotions. Let this lecture be built on the vision that Mr. Nkwanyama had. And if we do that, it will be a greatest honor to him. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this engagement. Welcome to the University of the Land. Please do share this great moment with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Chivase, Acting Vice Principal, Teaching and Learning, Community Engagement and Student Support at Unisa. I'm now going to call Mr. Nkwanyana. I think you will all agree with me after listening to Professor Chivase. Mao Zedong once said these words: to read too many books is harmful. So I'm going to ask Mr. Nkwanyana to do the remarks on behalf of the Nkwanyana family.
Okay. So, Manda. No, thanks very much. Maybe in the interest of time, I know comrades, once they started, yeah, no, thanks very much. Thanks very much, Prof, Program Director. A special greetings to Professor Chivase, who was just here now, representing the Vice Chancellor. I just want to acknowledge few guests, if I can put it that way, so that we can able to observe protocols. But as a start, as a family, we just want to thank very much to Unisa, as we always do, for this particular occasion. We want to acknowledge the presence, maybe first of the Speaker of KZN Legislature, who's among us. We want to acknowledge the Deputy Minister who's here of Science, Technology and Innovation. We want to acknowledge the entire academic leadership. I've seen also even Professor Nkosi there and other professors. David Maimela there from the Office of the Vice Chancellor, and many other high-ranking officials who are here, who have really played an important role to make sure that this particular day happens. That relates also to the regional leadership, Dr. Mieza. Thank you very much for always giving the leadership. But more in particular, as a family, we'll also want to thank very much Ambassador Ndebele, who's going to be our speaker today on this 3rd annual Simiso Memorial Lecture. And as we said even last year, that we appreciate that Unisa always pitch it at that level in terms of the choices of speakers who always come and address us. The first one was Dr. Pledzimande, who was then a Minister of Higher Education and Training and Science, Technology and Innovation. Last year it was the Deputy Minister of Finance. So today we are having the former Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, who later became a Minister of Transport, a Minister of Correctional Service, and then he joined the diplomatic world. So, as we welcome you and as we thank everybody who's here, we think that what you will receive today, because the theme that the Unisa chosen with regard to the issue of ethical leadership, whether in the academic space, in the political space, in the economic space, even in the religious space, cultural space, is an important one, especially for this country, where certain things in other sectors are not going well. The call for ethical leadership is therefore an important question. So we think that that theme resonates well with the time that we find ourselves in. There is a man by James Dyson, who's a founder and owner of Dyson Manufacturing. It manufactures your vacuum, your cleaning stuff. He once said, "What I have learned," if I were to quote him, he says, "What I have learned from running is that the time to push hard is when you are hurting like crazy and you want to give up. That's where success is just around the corner." So I'm saying, therefore, we might be facing all these challenges in the country in whatever angle that you look at them. Whether it's the challenges of leadership, whether it's challenges, whether in business, in academia and everywhere, it may very well be that if we push harder for what is right and correct, success is just around the corner. So in many ways, as I conclude, in many ways, I think that, Ambassador Ndebele, we can take this to you as also an honor to you and to your leadership also in the province, because you remain one of those leaders who have raised the bar high in the province when you were still an MEC, but also even as a Premier. Many things that you started, they still remain the legacy of what service delivery can be measured in this province. Whether you speak about all these highways, excellent roads that we see today, you started that. Today we take it for granted there was a Arrive Alive campaign, which is a national campaign, but it started with you here, and national government had to adopt it, and many other initiatives, because you represented that ethical leadership. So in that way, just to quote one musician who was popular then, Dolly Parton, she said, "In your actions, if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader." We hope that tonight, that's the message that will be in our heads after this lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nkwanyana, for the kind words, the remarks that you've done on behalf of your family. Before I call the Silomo Magic with a music interlude, I just wanted to share this small Anyana quote by Immanuel Kant when he says, "In law, a man is guilty when he violates the rights of others. In ethics, he is guilty if he only thinks of doing so." So that's the distinction. I've noticed also that the Secretary General of the Unisa National SRC is here. Mr. Zamini, can you just stand up and wave? Because Mr. Nkwanyana was a SRC leader, I don't want to be accused when I leave the podium that I neglected the SRC as an important stakeholder of the university. Thank you very much, SG. I'm going to now provide an opportunity for Silomo Magic with a music item. I'm told that you are a Unisa graduate. So we are everywhere, in all the corners of the society. Thank you very much, Silomo Magic. I think you will all agree with me that without music, life will be a mistake. So it's very important that we sometimes, once in our life, engage in the activity of music and dancing. I'm not going to waste time. I have noticed some of our speakers who arrived after time because of the challenges of transportation at the OR Tambo Airport. Allow me to call to the podium Dr. Nomalungelo Gina, Deputy Minister of Science, Technology, and Innovation. Her responsibility is to introduce the keynote speaker.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me greet and just write on the protocol that has been created before me here. But before I even start introducing the guest speaker, as we are seated there, enjoying the performance, I just saw Ambassador Usbu, the one that I'm here to introduce, meaning that really the performance was so good. But also, allow me, Program Director, as we have said, there are times where you will be committing a suicide that might be even career limiting to your own good if you don't acknowledge some of the people that are here. Program Director, there is a leadership here. How should I put it? Alliance in KwaZulu-Natal. If ever I don't acknowledge leadership from the South African Communist Party in the leadership, or in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, where Comrade Simiso was leading, I don't think we'll be doing well. Also in the leadership of Ikosatu that is here, I really greet you all, leadership, as I've seen you. But I'm here to introduce Ambassador Usbundebele. I will be quite short because when I was given and when I looked at the life of Usbundebele, I just thought it means I will take more than an hour if I can do so. So I've shortened it quite a lot. Just Comrade Ambassador Usbundebele, it's one of our outstanding leaders that we have produced as the province. Let me start here. That we have produced as the region, the Musadlala region, known as the King Cetshwayo district, that we have produced as the province of KwaZulu-Natal, but also that we have produced as the country. His leadership stewardship was shaped and molded by the African National Congress that recruited him when he was, I will start where he was already a student at the University of Zululand. He was recruited by then to do or to conduct the underground work, including material dissemination from exile mission to the country. Ndebele was arrested by the apartheid system, and he was sent to Robben Island as a political prisoner. Ambassador Ndebele belongs to that galaxy of leaders, the generation of the Robben Islanders, a prisoner that was regarded there in Robben Island as a university political leader that came back in 1990 after their release, ready to assume leadership, dismantling apartheid laws that were still existing. In the ANC, Ambassador Busiso Ndebele was elected as the first Southern Natal Secretary. After the 1994 elections, he was appointed as the first MEC of Transport in KwaZulu-Natal under the Provincial Government of Unity. So Sbu is not new to these terms that we are faced with and the situation we are faced with right now. He became an executive authority for Transport Department in KZN for 10 years, and his leadership in this portfolio and the innovation he brought is regarded as unmatched. Some of his initiatives were adopted by the National Department, such as what Comrade Ukaye said, initiatives like Arrive Alive campaign. The majority of KZN major roads were built during this era of a decade of his leadership, including rural roads. We know and we can remember when we look back, Amehlekati were first introduced by Usbu that made sure ukuthi ingozi eziningi KwaZulu-Natal sehla kondundulu lapha nasekucebezela kukhanya. It was through the initiative of Usbu. From the ANC leadership, Ndebele was the chairperson of KZN and holds a record as the longest serving chairperson of the ANC. He served between 1998 to 2008, and as a member of the ANC NEC simultaneously. When the ANC won elections in 2004, he became the premier of the province, a position he held until 2009. In 2009, he was appointed as the National Minister of Transport. In June 2012, he was appointed as the Minister of Correctional Services, and the position he held until 2014 elections. Ambassador Ndebele was then appointed as a High Commissioner to Australia, and later appointed as a High Commissioner to India, a position he held until his retirement recently. But even after his retirement, he still remains the well of knowledge. That is why Ambassador Sbu Ndebele is now a leader in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. He is the member of the provincial task team of the African National Congress, and we continue to draw wisdom from Comrade Sbu Ndebele. Comrade Sbu Ndebele, I'm introducing you and calling you upon to address this gathering that we are so eager to listen and to draw to the well of knowledge that you are bringing us today. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Uzabalaza, zabalaza, uzabalaza, 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 uzabalaza. Amandla. Thank you very much, Makaban. There is a saying that in every house there is a Unisa graduate. In every house there is a Unisa graduate. Unisa produces 70% of teachers in the whole country. So if you have not studied at Unisa, you were taught by someone who studied at Unisa. Without wasting time, I'm going to ask that our two VPs, Acting VP Teaching and Learning, Prof. Chivase, to come to the podium. Our Vice Principal Operations and Facility, Matsia Baba Mutebele, to also join us. The Dean of the College of Human Science, Prof. Zetunkosi, to join us. And the Deputy Registrar, Ms. Liana Joubert, to join us on the podium. And the RD, the Regional Director must also join us. I told you that in every house there is a Unisa graduate. What the Deputy Minister, Dr. Gina, did not say to you is that when Ambassador was in Robben Island, he was a student of Unisa, of political science. There, he did a degree in political science and also an honors degree in politics and administration when he was in Robben Island. But he never had an opportunity to receive his certificate. So today we are going to do the honors at the University of South Africa through the Principal Teaching and Learning, Dr. Chivase, to hand over the certificate to Ambassador Ndebele, officially.
And what I did not say, because it needed to be said now, just this year, to prove that learning is a lifelong activity, he received his master's degree cum laude from the University of Zululand.
Thank you very much. Dr. Chivase, I don't know if you want to say a word or before we leave the podium so that we allow him to continue with the speech.
Thanks, Prof. Sinukwane. Indeed, it's a great moment. It's a great moment. When we were alerted that Ambassador graduated 2 degrees from Robben Island, we were humbled. And as an institution, we had to do the right things. Because remember, in those days, they were not allowed to graduate in Robben Island, And when he accepted the invitation to say he will be with us tonight, we thought we can give him this certificate. But I was even worried to say, maybe he must walk the stage and then we can cap him. But Ambassador, we are really, really very proud of your achievement. And as I indicated that last week you were with Paul Ngwenya, who really made a lot of stories in terms of how Unisa assisted them, in the revolution, but also in the studies. Because there was no other university that had allowed them to study if it was not for University of South Africa. And I think for us, Ambassador, you are also an inspiration, more especially to the SRC that is here. You can imagine they've achieved what they've achieved despite the hard circumstances. And all of us today as young people, the opportunities are there. Why can't really we utilize these opportunities? So we want to thank you, and we are also welcoming you into Unisa alumni and convocation. We will tap on your knowledge, insight, and even visions. And because also as Unisa alumni, we are trying to raise funds to pay for the students that cannot afford to pay study fees. So very soon you'll be hearing from the Unisa alumni office. Welcome.
Are you leaving me alone here? Wow, that was overwhelming. Thank you very much, Program Director. And Professor Boitumelo Sinakwane. Professor Chivase. Dr. Mieni, Dr. Mieza. The Nkwanyana family, thank you very much for honoring this occasion. The staff of Unisa, the leadership of the Alliance present here, the Speaker of the Legislature, thank you very much for the hard work you're doing there, Ms. Boyce. And Deputy Minister Nomalungelo Kina, thank you very much. What do I say today? Comrade Simiso Nkwanyana, when all is said, before everything is said, ukamga obuga. Obuga olwabuga intlango yafa. Lukhona ubuga la. Awulathula nje. The professor's obuga is where Comrade Simiso comes from. It's where Melmoth ends and Mbangani starts. So it's called Obuga because it's part of the struggle of land dispossession So the farms start there, and they were not only deprived of the land, but also they could no longer even hunt wild animals. So when they went and did a hunt in the farms, Inyamazan, of course, ran this side, and of course it was killed, and the owner of the farm was chasing them, and the buck was already dead there. And then he wanted to know who killed the buck. Inhlango, a reed buck. And the community there said, well, we just looked at it and then it died. Because that was it. But thank you very much for inviting me in this very solemn occasion. When I left home, my wife was saying, don't be nervous, are you okay? And I thought I was okay until I came here, and I thought the gathering would be mostly town and a bit of gown. But I've not seen so much gown, and it's quite intimidating to actually speak in the midst of so many learned people. I feel like after the floods of 1987, my father was a priest, so we know, we believe in the afterlife. After the floods, one particular guy was very talkative, and he was explaining and dramatizing how terrible the floods were, and the bridges were blown away and everything. So he kept on talking about these terrible 1987 floods until someone pulled his jacket and said, as you are busy talking about these floods and exaggerating that it was floods that were never seen before, in the audience there is Noah. And Noah, you know, he saw the biggest floods ever. So when you start talking about your own experience, you must know that there are people who have got much more serious experience than yourself. We gather here under a name that still echoes in the corridors of Unisa, not only for its political clarity, but for its unmistakable warmth. Simiso Nkwanyana, for many who walked these grounds with him, his laughter arrived before he did, and stayed long after he left. He was not simply a student activist, he was a conscience. A founding member of Unisa's first SRC in 1996, he helped shape the democratic culture of this institution at a time when the old architecture of exclusion was still firmly in place. Tonight, as we honor his memory, we engage a theme he will have embraced with both hands: ethical leadership in the higher education sector. This lecture bears his name because he lived its argument. Setting the moral frame. Higher education is not just the production of graduates. It is the factory of national consciousness. It is the mind of the Republic. What our universities do today becomes the character of our nation tomorrow. The Freedom Charter, the foundational moral document of our democracy, understood this long before we were free. It declared in language both simple and revolutionary, and I quote, "Higher education and technical training shall be open to all by means of state allowances and scholarships awarded on the basis of merit, close quote. This statement was both a promise and a warning. A promise that the doors of learning shall be open, a warning that those doors will not open by themselves. Every generation must reopen them. Every generation must defend them. Tonight we ask, what does that defense look like ethically? What kind of leadership is required to safeguard the intellectual and moral life of the nation? The meaning of ethical leadership. Ethical leadership is often mistaken for polite behavior, for being nice, for avoiding confrontation. This is not only naive, it is dangerous. Ethical leadership is not the absence of wrongdoing. It is the presence of moral courage. Ethical leadership in higher education is the sustained practice of making decisions that advance knowledge and justice without sacrificing fairness, dignity, or public accountability. It is evident in budget choices, admission policies, hiring committees. Oh, too close. Sorry. It is evident in budget choices, admission policies, hiring committees, research priorities, residence allocations, and how we listen or fail to listen to students. Ethical leadership is not an optional extra at a university. It is the operating system. It is the difference between a university that merely teaches ethics and one that actually practices it. Simiso Nkwanyana as a template of ethical leadership. To understand ethical leadership, we can start with Simiso himself. In 1996, Unisa was navigating the early years of democracy. Many institutions sounded democratic on paper, but behaved autocratically in practice. It was a time of confusion, suspicion, and institutional uncertainty. Simiso stepped into that environment as a young man with an old soul. He believed that student leadership was not a stepping stone to political careerism, but a commitment to public service. He chaired the subcommittees on education transformation, challenged exclusionary cultures, and insisted that the university's governance must include the voices of those who felt its decision most intimately, the students. He understood something profound. Students are not guests in the house of higher learning. They are co-owners. Simiso lived the leadership that universities still struggle to teach. He understood that ethical leadership begins with 3 small habits. 1, show up when it is inconvenient. 2, tell the truth when it is unpopular. 3, do the right thing when nobody is watching. He practiced this with such consistency that Unisa later named a building in his honor. Institutions do not name buildings after those who merely occupied them. They name them after those who elevated them. How ethical leadership is internalized. Ethical leadership enters an institution through 3 channels: culture, governance, and conscience. Institutional culture is what we reward. Ethics becomes internalized when it is embedded in the rituals of the institution. The transparency of minutes, the openness of council meetings, how promotions are granted, how conflicts of interest are declared, whether complaints are ignored or acted upon, whether the least powerful, students, contract workers, have meaningful recourse. A university is ethical not because it has policies, but because it has consistent practices. governance what we enforce. Even the most ethical leader requires a system that supports integrity. Codes of conduct must be more than framed posters. They require independent ombuds offices, whistleblower protection, transparent procurement, external auditors for transformation and ethics, clear consequences when rules are broken. Without enforcement, ethics become theater. Beautiful, uplifting, and entirely useless. Individual conscience, what we choose. Institutions can provide the scaffolding, but leadership is personal. Ethical leadership requires the humility to admit error, the courage to reject patronage, the discipline to refuse shortcuts, the emotional intelligence to listen attentively, the willingness to be held accountable. You can legislate processes, but you cannot legislate conscience. And yet conscience without structure collapses under pressure. Should ethical leadership be voluntary or enforced? This is a false choice. It must be both. Voluntary ethics give a leader authenticity. Enforced ethics gives a system credibility. Voluntary ethics without enforcement becomes hypocrisy. Enforcement without voluntary ethics becomes authoritarian. A university requires a leadership culture where people want to do good and systems prevent them from doing harm. When the two align, you get an ethical institution. When they diverge, you get a crisis. Ethical leadership and transformation agenda. Ethics is not a separate project from transformation. Ethics is the engine of transformation. A transformation agenda without ethical leadership is like a vehicle without fuel. The frame is present, the destination is set, but nothing moves. Here is how ethical leaders reshapes transformation. 1, it legitimizes change. People follow transformation they can trust. Ethics gives transformation credibility. 2, it protects access. Ethical allocation of bursaries and scholarships ensures that the doors of learning truly open to the poor, the rural, the working class. 3, it democratizes knowledge. Ethical curriculum reform ensures that the university does not simply reproduce Eurocentric epistemologies, but integrates African, indigenous, and marginalized knowledge. It diversifies leadership. Ethical hiring and promotion create space for black women, working class scholars, and early career researchers who have previously been excluded. It strengthens student voices. It strengthens student voice. Ethical leadership protects student representation rather than viewing it as an inconvenience. It builds public trust. Universities are custodians of public resources. When ethical leadership is visible, the public supports the university. When ethics collapses, so does society's confidence. Lessons from great ethical leaders of our liberation tradition. Ethical leadership in education is not a new idea. We have deep roots. Let's start with Chief Albert Luthuli. In his Nobel lecture, Luthuli warned that education must never become a tool for indoctrination or oppression. He argued that when education loses its moral center, bitterness grows and society fractures. This is a warning our institutions must hear today. Education without ethics is not liberation, it is manipulation. Let's go on to Oliver Reginald Tambo. Tambo envisioned a South Africa where people, quote, live and work together as equals in conditions of peace and prosperity, close quote. He understood that democracy is not an event, it is a continuous project of ethical nation building. Universities must practice that project every day in staff meetings, residence rules, research priorities, and in how they treat their most vulnerable stakeholders. These leaders remind us that ethical leadership is not simply about policy, it is about character shaped by principle and disciplined by conscience. The crisis of ethical leadership in higher education today. Let us be honest enough to name our realities. Across South Africa, higher education faces funding shortages, student hunger, we must pause on that one, student hunger. I was once director of residencies at the then University of Durban, Westville, and this question of student hunger is actually quite serious. They struggle to get bursaries, to be admitted and so forth, and then there's no money for food at all. Then delayed NSFAS payments, political interference, nepotism in appointments, research compromised by corporate interest, gender-based violence on campuses, corruption in procurement, weak internal accountability, toxic labor relations. We cannot fix a structural crisis with individual goodwill alone. We need systemic, institutionalized ethical leadership. But we must also confront a painful truth. Some universities have become highly educated but morally illiterate. There are academics who publish prolifically but behave unethically. There are administrators who speak transformation but practice patronage. There are councils that preach accountability but avoid scrutiny. Ethical leadership means refusing to be silent when silence becomes complicity. A practical agenda for ethical leadership and transformation. Allow me to propose concrete actions which institutions can adopt in the short time. 1, to establish a 3-year ethics and transformation compact, signed by council, management, labor, and the SRC with publicly reported indicators. Create an independent student and staff ombudsman with powers to inspect, investigate, and make binding recommendations. Open appointment and promotion processes. Include external civil society representatives on panels for senior appointments. Publish bursary allocations and selection criteria annually. Transparency is the greatest disinfectant. Conduct a curriculum integrity audit every 2 years to ensure inclusivity, African scholarship, and academic freedom. Protect whistleblowers. Implement safe, anonymous reporting channels. Introduce ethics, key performance indicators for senior managers, measured, monitored, and publicly released. Institutionalize regular engagement with students, not as a favor, but as a governance principle. These measures do not require ideological consensus, only moral commitment. The human element, ethical leadership as a daily practice. Ethical leadership is not found in mission statements or glossy brochures. It is found in the everyday mundane acts of responsibility. A lecturer who takes extra time to support a struggling student. A dean who admits an error publicly. A registrar who refuses an irregular instruction. a manager who pays contract workers fairly, a professor who refuses to plagiarize or exploit postgraduate students, and as an SRC leader who resists the temptation of patronage, a council member who demands clean governance, even unpopular. Small decisions build institutional character. Ethical leadership is the accumulation of daily moral choices. Returning to Simiso Nkwanyana, the imperative of moral consistency. Simiso's leadership was not loud or grandiose. It was steady, principled, and consistent. He demonstrated something that every university needs to rediscover. Leadership is not about positions. It is about posture. It is about power. It is about purpose. His life teaches us that ethical leadership is not a theory, it's a practice. It is the willingness to stand when others sit. To speak when others whisper. To act when others calculate. His legacy is an appeal to our conscience. Will we lead ethically even when the cost is personal? A call to moral leadership. Let me do these last three reflections. First, ethical leadership is not an abstract ideal. It is the lifeblood of a university that seeks to transform rather than merely reform. Second, ethical leadership must be both voluntary and enforced. The soul in the individual and the spine in the institution. Third, ethical leadership is the greatest memorial we can build for Simiso Nkwanyana. If we want to honor him, we must not only remember him, we must imitate him. And so, there is a challenge to every leader here today, council members, academics, administrators, SRC leaders, student activists. Will you lead ethically when nobody is watching? Will you build institutions that future generations will thank you for? Will you protect the vulnerable even when it is unpopular? Let us hear the words of Oliver Tambo echoing across time. The future belongs to those who prepare for it today. And the caution of Albert Lutuli reminding us that education without moral integrity becomes oppression. And above all, let us hear the silent voices of Simiso, whose life tell us transformation without conscience is a parade without destination. Let our reforms be measured by how they change human lives. May we lead with integrity. May we teach with humility. May we govern with justice. May we serve with humanity. That tries to summarize what Simiso stood for. We have tried to stay as close as possible to the given topic on ethical leadership as it related to Comrade Simiso. Needless to say, his attributes as a leader of the South African Communist Party impacted most positively on the ANC, of which he was also a leader. My own personal experience with Comrade Simiso. I was elected provincial chair of the ANC in 1998 and held that position for 3 terms until 2008. It was my fortune to share the same decade with Comrade Simiso. He was as much a leader of the Communist Party as much as he was a leader of the ANC. In 1998, our task was clear-cut. First, make KwaZulu-Natal a peaceful province. The absence of peace was an indictment to any leadership, no matter how it was explained. As Simiso argued, Progressive ideas will only thrive under conditions of peace, and to fight for peace took courage. Secondly, to win elections or make the ANC a decisive factor in the province. As it turned out, we succeeded to move the ANC from 26 seats out of 80 to 34, while removing the IFP from 41 to 34, a draw. We were on a clear path to winning the province, which we did in 2004. Both in the NGC and National Conference, the organizational report of the SG of 2000 and 2002, KZN was singled out as the most united and effective alliance. It was our fortune to share that decade with Simiso. Just some words about Unisa. We are at the Durban campus of the University of South Africa. The Simiso Nkwanyana Durban campus of Unisa. Unisa has played a huge role in providing and affording a higher standard of education for generations and generations, not only for South Africa, but for our continent. It is a usual thing to find people, particularly in my experience as an ambassador, to get many African leaders that had degrees from Unisa. But to illuminate this point, let me refer to the Robben Island experience. As Eleanor Sisulu succinctly articulates in the biography of Tata Walter and Albertina Sisulu, and I quote, "For political prisoners, there was nothing better than academic achievement to raise their morale and make them feel their prison years were not wasted. Education was a major preoccupation of the Robben Islanders at a collective and an individual level. Former prisoners speak proudly of wiping out illiteracy on the island. The appellation University of Robben Island was well deserved. Many prisoners arrived there with no tertiary education and left with one or more degrees to their name. The warders had watches, but we, as prisoners, had time. You've got a watch, I've got time. So born to go in a band. The warders had watches, but we, as prisoners, had the time. How each one used the time depended on one's determination and a sense of purpose. The leadership on the island set a good example. There was no such thing as too much or too little education. There was always something more you could do, not necessarily for certification. Studying was not without obstruction from some authorities. Education had a dual purpose of empowering yourself as an individual, but more importantly, empowering society. The opportunity provided by being a registered student afforded one to do more than personal advancement. It was in this context that Tata Nelson Mandela was prevailed upon by his peers to write his biography, No Easy Walk to Freedom, to be smuggled out by, amongst others, Comrade Mac Maharaj in 1975. That opportunity was provided, of course, that window of opportunity was provided by being registered with Unisa, and then you write your biography as if you are still writing an assignment. Tata Sulu was also urged to produce his memoirs. Around 1977, the warders pounced on the Sulu notebooks. And Tata Sulu had, of course, studied a lot. He got his GCE under the University of London and then registered with Unisa. And it was during that Unisa registration that his studies were taken away as punishment. In 1978, without any notice, the authorities imposed a prohibition on any studies above matric. Only those few who were already registered were allowed to continue. A vigorous campaign was mounted to demand the right to study. Soon enough, it became a strong international campaign, with several governments weighing in on the South African government to lift this ban. The ban was finally lifted in 1981, not before we had embarked on an excruciating 7-day hunger strike. But at last we could again register. That was now 1981. A story is told that there was quite a lot of debate with the apartheid ministers at that time. Kobi Kutsie was the Minister of Prisons and Justice, and under PW Botha. And they were arguing Korenhoff and this one, let's give the student uprising that had started in Soweto in 1976 was continuing. Arguing for proper classrooms, windows, doors, laboratories and libraries in the schools. And the apartheid government was refusing. But then 1981, in terms of prisoners, our diet changed from Inkobe, suddenly, and then pork and all that. Suddenly started with rumors there's going to be chicken. Oh, chicken in jail? Yes, no, there's going to be chicken. There's going to even be bedding instead of sleeping on the mat, which the 1964s onwards, all of them had been sleeping on the mats all the time. Then suddenly, they said, they're going to introduce beds. Bed and pajamas in prison. Jeez. So things were turning up. But the story is told of this argument when Kobi Kutsie, Korenhoff, with the other ministers, said, no, but what is this thing? Korenhoff was saying, look, black students are arguing for proper classrooms, libraries and so forth, and your cabinet is refusing. But you are giving prisoners beds, pillows, instead of using your elbow as a pillow. Now they are going to get pillows, pajamas even, and chicken. What is this thing? Why aren't you giving the students that are asking for all these things from Soweto throughout South Africa? Give them this instead of giving prisoners. Then Kobi Kutsie says, or PW says, if Mandela is finally released from prison, do you think he is going to send us to school or send us to prison? We are not doing it for them, we are doing it for ourselves. What will happen to us? And indeed our own situation started to improve as this level of struggle was going up. Of course, in 1982, we woke up to the news that on Robben Island, we woke up to the news that not only Mandela, but Sisulu, Govan Mbeki, Ahmed Katrada, Raymond Mhlaba, Wilton Mkwai, Mtswaledi, and Mlangen had been taken away from Robben Island. The headquarters had been taken away. Where were they? What did this mean? The authorities were feeling that Robben Island, not only symbolically, but in effect was becoming a powerful factor in the unfolding struggles for freedom raging outside. It had to be neutralized. We proceeded to reconstitute ourselves and empowering ourselves through formal and informal study, different layers of leadership were emerging. So this dispersal was to neutralize the effect of Robben Island. But of course, it was that they themselves had given us the authority, because at one time they wanted to send to get Matanzima to come to Robben Island to meet Matiba. And Matiba, of course, knew what his response would be. But instead of giving that response, he said no, he wants permission to consult, which therefore legitimized us as ANC on Robben Island to consult, and week after week, we're still consulting. In the meantime, of course, we're having an opportunity to discuss quite openly as ourselves. But from then, of course, things started becoming easier. We started registering. I completed BA in 1983, proceeded with honors, and then suddenly in 84, we abruptly transferred from Robben Island. Others similarly transferred were Comrade Khalima Motlante, Stanley Nkosi, George Mashamba. Together, Mashamba had been a philosophy lecturer at TEFLOP. We found ourselves in Johannesburg prison. I was already doing an honors degree at that time. I had established a very warm relationship with Professor Pierre Hugo and other staff in the African Politics Department. Professor Hugo took the trouble to visit me at Johannesburg prison. He urged me to proceed to the masters after completing the honors. But the turbulent world that I found in my release in 1987 forced me to be involved fully in the unfolding political drama, particularly in the difficult province of KwaZulu-Natal. This left very little time for studies. Even when freedom dawned, I was drawn for 10 years then to be MEC for transport, then Premier for 5 years. At national government, after transport, I became the first former prisoner to be Minister of Prisons. I hope I made a difference. Professor Hugo was not done with me. In 2022, when I was now High Commissioner for South Africa in India, he again made contact, even though he had retired. He had really urged me and flattered me that I was one of his better students. And said, no, I must continue and complete the masters. And now I was now in India in 2022. Then I said, what do I do? Let me continue, which I finally completed last year. Of course, we're inspired in this, because in spite of all the pressures, and if you look at the example of Matiba, there is a disease that affects a number of people. Pseudo-medical people call it givapitis. Matiba didn't have that disease called givapitis, and inspired all of us not to have givapitis, never to give up, to just push. He himself had started way back in the 40s, but he continued studying when he was Robben Island. They took away his studies like they did with Sisulu, took away his studies, but he proceeded, he continued when the atmosphere was okay. And In 1989, he completed his LLB. That's Madiba. Now, if a person that age continued to study, who are we not to study? At the Rivonia trial, Percy Utah, quite a determined apartheid defender and prosecutor, had this to say about Sisulu. He was used to, this type of speech. When he asked you a question where he didn't expect any answer, said, Mr. Sisulu, either you revolve around the revolution or the revolution revolves around you. I don't know what Dada Sulu was supposed to say. But today, as we gather here at the Simiso Nkwanyana building, we can say the same of the ubiquitous Simiso. Simiso, he was here, he was there, he was everywhere. He was at the SACP, he was at the ANC, he was at Unisa, at SRC, he was at communities, and his spirit continues to be with us. And your presence here tonight confirms that his thoughts and example are still with us. And we say to Mrs. Nkwanyana, thank you and the family of Nkwanyana, thank you for lending him to us. Thank you for still sharing his memory with us. And all we can do is to emulate his example. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ndebele, for the speech. He's from Unisa. He's our graduate from Unisa, our proud alumni. There is always a polo that spoils the mood. MM02WTWTGP, VW Polo. There is a polo that needs to be attended. There are also keys that are found. Please come to us if you've lost some keys so that we continue with the rest of the program. I'm now going to call the Deputy Registrar from Unisa, Ms. Liana Giselle-Joubert, to do the facilitation on the panel discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Program Director, Professor Sinekwani, and also to the Ambassador. You know what when I think of ethical leadership, Ambassador, I just had a look at you and I can just sense we can be so proud of the galaxy of leaders that we can see in yourself as well tonight. So thank you so much for setting this scene for this panel discussion. And I just love the storytelling. And I'm just going to start off by telling something about myself so that we could also elaborate a little bit on that, and I'm going to bring in Prof. Senekwane in this little story. So 8 years ago, and we're talking about leadership and ethical leadership, and the ambassadors said to us, it is action, courage to take action. And many universities have struggled with many challenges. I'm looking at the SG, and I know that they're currently struggling with NSFAS issues. And when it comes to ethical leadership, it starts with morality and moral sensitivities. And so Prof. Senekwane, myself, and a few others fought for the insourcing of the marginalized that have been struggled for so many years and explored by many companies until today. And today he's my most best friend, but Professor Senekwane kept me hostage for 12 hours to make me just think differently about society, about the walks of life. And if it isn't for us that go through struggle, we will be exactly the same person that we was 10 years ago. And hence, I'm grateful for the university. I'm grateful for the University of South Africa, the University of the Land, that's not only shaping our students, but is also shaping individuals that come from different walks of life. But today we can stand together and we can stand up for what is right. And I trust that that is somehow embeddedness in the ethical leadership that the ambassador so profoundly shared with us tonight. So to continue with our panel discussion, I'm going to call upon our panelists, and I'm going to ask Professor Nombubelepu Dilutlotle and Dr. Siyabonga Nzamandi and Dr. Lefatsi Moage to join me and to have a nice discussion. But it's not on the program, but for those who know me, program director, I might just give a tweak or two, and I want the students to be ready, all right? To be ready. So let's have this wonderful engagement, and I'm going to join can I join my panel there? Can they still hear us as if we sit there? All right, great. So, can they still hear us? Not okay, must be. Yeah. It's working. So, colleagues, I think we should just start with this amazing discussion and build on, we had Dr. Zavasi, we had Dr. Gina, we had the ambassador setting the scene around higher education, ethical leadership. And I might just bring some controversial issues in, if you don't mind, In the past 10 years, in September 2014, the then minister, launched the new governance reporting for higher education. And part of that, we need to bring in risk assessments, we need to bring in reporting, we need to bring in clean audits, etc. And then we are a well-governed university. In the same 10 years, when the minister launched that, 6 universities went under administration. Some twice. So let's just talk a little bit around that. Can it be that we paint the picture in a way, but ethical leadership never surfaces. What is your opinion around those issues? Are there ethical leadership in our universities right now, whilst we are struggling with morality, whilst we are struggling with the decisions that needs to be taken? And then we've got clean audits, but we go under administration. And then we're saying, is it management? Your opinion?
Thank you so much. I hope you don't mind that I go first. But I think that's a good question, and particularly since I come from the University of South Africa, internal issues are really quite important that we must be able to resolve ourselves. And we're really quite excited that we actually dodged the bullet, that we were not actually had gone under administration as they wanted the University of South Africa to actually to go under the administration. We saw that we were managed to actually resolve the internal issues that were happening within the university. And in terms of, it shows a lot of commitment that we have in our management. That even though there are challenges that the universities might be experiencing, we've seen in the media, other universities are burning down, which is really quite disturbing. I don't think that when there are issues that universities have to deal with, that we have to go and become violent towards buildings and burn them down. So I think it's important that within the leadership of the universities that we must come together, be decisive on certain issues that we have to deal with, and not to see the students that we're supposed to be delivering services to fighting against the system and fighting against the leadership of the universities, and to see them actually now burning down universities. And another thing is that it's also important that as universities of higher learning, including TVET colleges as well, they also form part of the higher learning institutions. We must collaborate. Collaboration is also important. It does not mean that when we produce knowledge, we also produce skills development, that we must only close it down to our universities internally only, but also we must expose it to other universities and other institutions of higher learning so that we can be able to learn from each other. That is part of leadership. That is also part of decisiveness, being decisive, and also paving the way for institutions to learn from other institutions on how they manage to work around the challenges that they're experiencing. So I'm really quite happy that with the University of South Africa, we managed to actually, settle our issues that we were experiencing. There were some other internal things that happened. We saw the South African human rights also coming in at some point. Another point is that we were not ignorant about the issues that we were experiencing. They listened to the matters that were brought at hand. The same way with the student structures, they come through, they are able to sit in management so that they can be able to address student issues that are happening. I think that's the whole entire point, is that we must not isolate, student structures, also not to participate in managerial issues, to avoid seeing students fighting and being violent toward our institutions.
Thank you very much. I think personally, when we talk about ethical leadership, I think for me, more especially when we are talking about ethical leadership in higher education, I think it goes beyond compliance and governance structures. It is really about modeling, that is, behaviors that inspire trust, and talk about transparency, fairness and accountability across teaching and learning, in terms of the way we do research, our community engagements, and also in administration. So for me, I strongly believe that having institutions or interventions like you've just mentioned, that is important, because for us to remain ethically sound, we need to invite scrutiny in everything that we do. And I don't think that higher education is an exception. So interventions like those, they should be welcomed, and we should really meet them where they are in terms of producing what we need to produce, and where we have erred. That's really something that we need to highlight, and it's something that we need to correct. Because obviously, like Unisa, it's a really, really big institution. We cannot always get those clean audits, but where we have been found to be wanting, it's not really time to be making excuses. It's time for us to recognize that here are the items where we have done correctly, but here are the items that is to be elevated, to get some introspection, so that we can then, be able to improve and, be successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think for me, I got two core beliefs as somebody that works in the human behavior change space. And maybe we need to question also the caliber of people that we employ, and also look at the vision and mission statements of these institutions, and begin to ask ourselves, when we recruit individuals to come and join in any institution, are their values aligning to the values of which that are in the institution already? Core belief number one is this: information alone does not change people. People change when they see those around them change. Who is willing to role model ethical leadership? And we are actually willing to walk behind them and say, this is ethical leadership, and we are actually willing to follow, and they are role modeling. We don't have a problem with leadership in South Africa, as the global South, globally, whatever that is happening. We don't have a problem with leadership. We have a problem with positive role models. Then we can come back and speak about ethical leadership. The second one, which is a core belief, I wrote it down when Ambassador Ndebele was speaking. This one is: the message giver is the strongest message. Therefore, it's not about what you're saying, but it's about who is saying this. Are you able to practice what you preach? So while we're speaking about, and again, we have to find intersectionality of, we're looking for qualified people to fulfill a certain position, but also we must push it back to, are they matching the values in which we want this institution aspires to? And you can't go to a shop and buy integrity. There's no shop in South Africa that sells integrity. Even you can be corrupt and you can go to wherever, to the ad hoc committee, and they ask you questions, you still can't buy integrity. Integrity is a value. And some people, unfortunately, values are double-forwarded. There are positive values and there are negative values. Institutions of higher learning, therefore, have a huge task on how do we raise young people with ethical leadership, and ensuring that beyond curriculum, we have programs that are going to be speaking into the values of young people, so that we produce, at the end, ethical leadership that we want to see. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So I just want to touch on a little bit. So it's not predominantly only about Unisa. So I think we just need to bring it to the higher education sector per se. And for me, what is your feeling around corporate governance at institutional level, but also at the ministerial level? Because what we see is that the way that it's governed up there has a huge impact on the way that universities respond. I'm going to use the example of NSFAS, and I hope the audience would appreciate where we come from. But the impact of the ill governance of NSFAS on universities in totality in South Africa, to a great extent, is appalling. I don't even have another word to say that. Because how is it possible that universities right now still don't have NSFAS funding to pay basic allowances to students? Basic. The ambassador spoke about just the moral around that. Now, those are decisions at governance level, at government level? And how did it impact on higher education? And how do we as leaders stand up for what is right? I think the ambassador, you said, take action and don't be scared. There are, however, leaders that do stand up. But at the end, one of our two wonderful colleagues in South Africa been shot. So how do we take this further and demonstrate ethical leadership in higher education as a sector as a whole, not for ourselves, for the students that we serve?
I think that's a very good point, but it seems like there's a huge disconnect between the governance model and institutions of higher learning. That there's a misunderstanding of exactly what those dynamics actually entail. One of the reasons that one of the issues that we notice is that when we're dealing with NSFAS and student funding, and at the same time you're dealing with institutions who are supposed to deliver knowledge and do knowledge production, and predominantly it's about research and teaching and learning, you find that the sector of governance requires a lot of administration. And coming from the lecture position, you would find that we actually do not want to deal with a lot of administration, but rather knowledge production. And then how do you connect the two, administrative and the research dynamics of it, in a space whereby you can be able to serve the interests of the students? And as we've noticed, a lot of the students in South Africa come from previously disadvantaged background. The ambassador spoke about the issues of poverty and hunger. At the same time, how do we teach students who come from disadvantaged background to only rely on NSFAS to be able to attain their qualification, to go to campus, to go to the learning centers in regional campuses, so that they can be able to complete their qualifications? They need a lot of support. And where do those support should come from? Not only from NSFAS, but also from the faculty as well. So I think there's a huge disconnect in the way the governance model has been constructed, and in terms of how to be able to assist the student, and also how the faculties can be able to come in and assist the students in case NSFAS is unable to do that. It all comes back to the interest. We as leaders, are we serving our own personal interests, or are we serving the interests of the students? Looking back at SRC structures and how they've been constructed, particularly from the University of South Africa, is that back then with Simiso Nkwanyana, I'm so fortunate that we walk in the footsteps of them, because they created the National SRC. They were selfless leaders. They literally had to create activities with zero budget, with no budget at all. Now we have SRC structures that have funding, that can be able to create activities for students to be able to be skilled and to be developed, and also to be empowered. So we actually need to create a connection whereby how do we bring the administration and the research knowledge production together, so that we can provide the service for the students.
Thank you very much for that question. I think when we talk about the issue of NSFAS and the plight of students, I would like to start by saying that it shouldn't be something that we hear about only in January, probably up to April, because that's when really we hear about, or like maybe let me just say, that's when we hear a lot about, that is the lack of funding, and the government not paying institutions that is on time, and students, they get left behind because they end up starting very late, and you find that lecturers by that time they have moved on in terms of curriculum. So now you have to organize classes that is to try and assist the students to catch up and so forth. But I must say that the issue of funding, it's not something new. The issue of funding has been there, I think, for ages. And I think probably I'm going to come across as controversial when I'm talking about funding. But we need to be aware that the income that we are getting as NSFAS funds is not bottomless. So meaning that the processes that are in place of funding, that whole model of funding, it needs to be relooked. Because before, we used to have students getting bursaries, but that student will be signing a contract to say that I'm getting this bursary, and when I start working, I'll then be paying this back. And the students who were really, really needy, they were the students that were exempted. Not everybody used to get a free bursary. So you come in, you are dropping after 2 years, and nothing happens, because obviously the government is paid, so the government will then be losing money, because at the end of the day, there isn't any graduate. So I would like to believe that the whole model or the framework that is being used for NSFAS, it needs to be relooked at. And I know that the SRC at Unisa, they are working very hard in contributing, and that happens with other universities that is as well, where you are getting the SRC people really, really canvassing, that is the private and the public sector, in contributing and them adding that money into the funding that is supporting the students, which is great. But there is another issue. The issue of CETAs. I'm not going to mention names, but there are CETAs where you look at their mandate is to support the students. And that is not happening. And those are the things that I think that when, you know, the vice chancellors and maybe when the chancellors are lobbying, you know, in their platforms, or if maybe they are being called to account, that is to Parliament, those are the things that they need to highlight. To say, you know, we are doing all of these. I mean, like even us as academics, we are now contributing. I mean, every month we are contributing, or let me just say maybe some of us, we've got stop orders that we are putting in place so that our students, they can be funded. We are contributing in that pot so that our students can be funded. But at the end of the day, colleagues, that money is not bottomless. So that framework, it needs to be relooked at, and only the needy students should be getting a free bursary. Those that have got parents that can afford, those students, they should be paying back this money when they start working. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think much has been said by my colleagues, but one might need to go back and really push into the last point of building resilience and sustainable systems. But outside of just really thinking about building resilient and sustainable systems in place to ensure that there's adequate funding, to also ensure that there's accountability. I was at the G20 summit, a social summit, and I just came back this morning, and I realized that we need to begin to stop speaking about the SDGs in isolation to another. When we are saying we want to end poverty, we must really think, what does it mean to end poverty? And also look at how to ensure that government is actually committing itself not just to look good internationally, but they also want to look good domestically. I do find sometimes that we have a hypocrisy kind of leadership system that is in place. When it comes to these commitments, we say something else, but when you come down and you zoom into what is really happening in institutions of higher learning, in primary school level, at ECD level, we are not actually directing the commitment to ensure that we meet these commitments that we've set. Therefore, the importance of civil society movements and ensuring creating pressure cook for the institutions must be welcomed. Also for government must also be welcomed. And I think that there is a role of advocacy that communities need to play at every level, local, international level, and global level. We must really look at how do we hold leaders in leadership places accountable, and we must be protected. I come from civil society, and we tell government that these are not the commitments that you said you're going to make. You are not going to make it. Look at Agenda 63 right now. Where are we with that? Look at ending AIDS by 2030. Where are we with that? There's a lot of commitments that government has made, but but we are not anywhere close to get there. If we are still failing a student of funding in an institution, how are we going to meet international standards? We might look at our armpits first before we look outside.
So there's a theme coming through in our engagements. And we spoke about transparency, and the ambassador also spoke about transparency quite eloquently. The word that I'm now picking up is the issue of trust. So transparency, trust, openness, fairness, all of those come together. And then you spoke about the issues around accountability. Now, when I look at university systems, and I'm not talking about Unisa per se, I'm looking at university systems because I just love to study how universities' processes functions and how effectiveness are being brought in. So, for me, leadership plays a very much prominent role there, because you spoke about the money is just, the pot is just this big. And if we build in inefficiencies in our systems and in our processes, what happens? The cost of education is just increasing on a daily basis. And yes, we can just invest so much. So the accountability for, you mentioned resilience, to come back to a more social just system is quite important for higher education. And I guess it requires ethical leadership, because it is about tenders. It is about appointment processes. The ambassador mentioned quite a few of them, from transparency in appointment processes, from the procurement processes. Do we really look at the decisions that we make in our investments to ensure that the cost of education for every decision that we make escalate by triple digits annually? 3 times more than inflation. Can government afford unproductive higher education systems in the future?
You were speaking about so many issues there, but then the first one that I actually caught sight of was the issue of trust. And trust is really quite important in leadership. And one thing that we noticed that happened just earlier now is that, trust in the University of South Africa to actually hand over the ambassador's certificates, and which he had already completed a long time ago. So that shows the amount of trust that the leadership of the university has in ensuring that they provide quality education to their students. And in terms of credibility, qualifications must be credible. And we've seen that in universities, there are certain qualifications that do not hold any credibility. And it's because it requires a lot of systematic panels, or rather procedures, in order for those qualifications to be credible. So leadership also requires credibility. It also requires quality assurance. You cannot be a leader and not be seen to have quality leadership and ethical roles. So in terms of your other questions that you asked in governance and in decision making and the cost of education, it can be quite extremely expensive. But then how do we cut the line between providing quality education at a lost cost-effective manner? And that's where the University of South Africa comes in, as opposed to other universities that are formalized. With the University of South Africa, it is, there are not informal classes, even though we do offer online classes, but the quality of the education, the qualification that we offer is really quite credible. Hence, we see today that the ambassador was also awarded his certificates that he completed his qualification a long time ago. So that proves ethical leadership, that proves trust, that proves being decisive, that also proves that how ethical the university is in ensuring that their students receive the quality education.
I think the way a number of questions or a number of things that you have just highlighted now, but I would like to zone in on one, the issue that is the latter part when we were asking about can the government actually afford, that is the rising costs of education in the higher education in South Africa. It is my belief that no, I don't think the government can be able to afford on their own. Because remember that for the government to be able to fund us, they need a tax pool. And if we are being told time and again that that tax pool is shrinking and that they are not able to get the money, and even if they do get the money, you know, I'm sure you have seen with the commissions that we have been having, that money, you know, it gets misspent somehow. So you may find that whatever then that is supposed to go to universities, if maybe university was supposed to get 10 rand, that university can end up getting 6 rand. Because there are just so many other competing forces that is for the same pool, that is, or like that, this little pot that obviously the government has got, that is to dish out in trying to fund different things that are required in the country. So I would like to believe that it is important that is for universities to look at ways that can make them sustainable. So sustainability in higher education, I would like to believe that that is the core focus, that it should be ringing in each and every leader that is of a higher education institution. So in terms of focusing, that is in like coming up with, always we are coming up with new programs. We need to reevaluate the programs that we have. Because there are some programs that are there, they are registered, and you run the whole program for the whole year, and yet you've got a handful of students. Running a program costs money. There are resources that are put there, which are lecturers, you know, that must put in the effort of putting together the curriculum and all of those things. We need to partner with industry, especially when it comes to formulating some of these programs. We need to look at short learning programs, because that's really at that stream income that, you know, universities, they can be able to, you know, make themselves to be more sustainable. We need to look at programs where maybe it's like block weeks, you know, and we can be able to invite the industry. We are partnering with industry. Say, for example, we can concentrate on retailing. We are partnering with industry and we are doing block, that is classes on retailing. But in terms of them paying, when we are doing block weeks, they are paying far more than what a normal student will pay. That's another way of making money. Another way of making money is the one of research. And I think other universities, including Unisa, they have realized the importance of ensuring that academics, they are staying, you know, not afloat, but they are really at the forefront of making sure that we are doing research, and we are doing research that it can be, you know, patent, they can be applied to that research, you know, more income generation, they can be realized from those particular research. And in that way, we can be able to contribute, that is, into the funding of like our university. So for me, sustainability, I think maybe it's because maybe my PhD is also on sustainability, and I looked at, that is the sustainability of higher education. So for me, that is really something going forward we are really going to be grappling with, because government on their own, they cannot afford the rising cost of education. They cannot afford the rising numbers, that is, of people who are entering the NSFAS list. So looking at other ways of creating that funding is important.
Forgive me for keep going back to the global agenda. I come from the UN space, but I'm going to try and bring it down. I think it is important for us to realize that within the SDGs, we are speaking within SDG 16, where we focus on building strong institutions. And this is something that also aligns with the Agenda 63. And in effective institution, we are saying that we want an African driven by its citizens. In building these strong institutions, therefore, means that we need to look at aspiration 1 of the Agenda 63, which is good governance. We need to look at aspiration 6, which is people-driven development. We need to look at aspiration 7, where we're talking about strong, united Africa in global negotiations. But everything that we're still pushing back into, we are speaking about building strong institutions with high accountability. And I think we can't afford to miss our eyes on this particular one, because we must also encourage systems thinking. And why I'm going back to systems thinking, because when we are saying that we're investing in education, but on the other hand, we can't sustain a learner, a student, to be in the institution, we are not serious ourselves as an institution about the investment into the young person or to anybody who's accessing. I'm speaking mostly within the youth space language. I find it very hard to believe that we will say that there is a student who's in an institution of higher learning, but we don't care about their psychosocial support. We want cum laudes, we want to produce academic excellence, but we are not going back to the value that says, before you can teach me, you have to reach me, and reach me where I am. Thank you.
We're coming to a close, and I would like to know if there will be one SRC member who would love to join us. I'm just going to ask a little question around what the students think.
Yep.
You know, you can't teach a student if you don't hear their voice.
Yep.
Either. So if there's any student, I'm not going to put pressure. I'm looking at the SG, and so, but it's fine if they don't want to come. I'll ask them later. So if they come, I thought you will join me.
He is coming.
He is coming. So whilst he's joining us quickly, I'm going to latch on your the global space.
Yep.
Because we had the privilege, you can sit here next to me, we had the privilege last night to listen to Professor Sachs. And I hope I've got my facts right, all right? Because it was just mind-blowing. He said that China's population will reduce from 1.4 billion to 800 million. That's his projections. But then he said, Africa will increase from 1.4 billion to 3.8 billion, around that. And his thoughts at the end was, South Africa is the future of the world, and we can only do so through education.
Yep.
Only through education. And in order to do so, we require leadership. And you're saying we have the leaders. We need the role models. And here's the role models, isn't it?
Yes.
Here's the role models sitting next to me. And I'm seeing a difference in our, and I'm not buying favors here with the SRCs, but what I'm seeing over 34 years in higher education is a tipping point in cooperative governance, a total tipping point in cooperative governance. We never heard the student, we only told the student.
Yep.
We didn't engage the students, we just put them there, and all that they do is they had to vote with their feet. But we never want to make time to hear. So the concept of cooperative governance and ethical leadership, I guess there's a good correlation between the two of them.
Yep.
So if we want to really change Africa as a global phenomenon in the world, and we can do so through education. What is your views? And then I'm going to give the last word to our SG to help us to craft something that all of us can take home tonight, to say, I can play a role as an ethical leader to put forward a global phenomenon that Africa can lead the world.
I want to say this quickly. I think it's important when we're speaking about in governance and leadership, we really begin to scrutinize what is meaningful engagement looks like. When we say that we have engaged in how we develop our policies, in how we are actually implementing our policies and ensuring good governance that is in place, there's a huge component of consultation and engagement. But I will really love to push and say, how do we define what is meaningful engagement? Do we engage young people as participants, or do we engage young people as decision makers within institutions of higher learning? And it's very important as well to decide if you have a good governance leadership and you are speaking about engagement, and for you to decide that I'm able to engage before the process, I'm engaging during the process, but I'm also engaging post the process. I feel like if we stop treating engagement in South Africa and within institutions as a tick box, but we begin to meaningfully document engagement, we will have proper production and better South Africa. Thank you.
I actually think inclusivity is also really important, because we cannot speak about the students without involving the students in governance structures and allowing them to participate fully in management positions, to be able to have a voice and tell us what is it that they require for their empowerment. That's also important, to be given that opportunity so that we can be able to hear from them. I'm so impressed that the University of South Africa produces so many graduates, but then what is happening to our graduate? We need to make follow-up. Yes, we can have an alumni system whereby they are in the database, but with a high unemployment rate in the country, what are we saying about our alumni in the positions that they are in the communities? Where are they? So we need to include them back into the system to say, tell us where we should be able to locate you for employment, for opportunities to be employed, to be creative, to be creators, so they can also become active citizens, not only as active citizens in the country, but also to take forward the university name, you know. So inclusivity is really, it's important, and it's something that we must ensure that when we speak about the students must also be involved in the governance models.
I must say that, you know, when I'm reflecting about the daily processes that we follow as academics at Unisa, I would like to believe that there is engagement and there is active participation. You may find that there are some decisions that are made that probably the students may not really support them in full, but in terms of being part of the process, I've seen that happening at Unisa. I'll just make examples. We were looking at the issues of AI in teaching and learning and also in research. And the engagement was before, because obviously we have picked up that there are some issues with regards to the usage of AI, and not just usage, improper usage of AI. And the engagement is started, that is in making sure that the communication is very clear and we are explaining, we are giving examples During the exam period, we engage students again to remind them that is about the improper usage that is of AI and how to avoid, how to use AI ethically, and even post. Students, they are also engaged to say that this is where you have gone wrong. Next time when you are using AI, consider X, Y, and Z.
Becomes meaningful.
So that, for me, at Unisa, I can't vouch for all the colleges, but I know that there are a number of colleges that are applying the same. And same applies when it comes to plagiarism. And this is now plagiarism on the part of students and also plagiarism on the part of academics, because it does happen. So that we start with from the onset to say this is what plagiarism looks like. And it's not just a once-off kind of intervention. It's something that is happening, you can call it quarterly, monthly, but it happens at Unisa. And when a person has been found to have plagiarized, we don't come with a big stick. We always believe that a person needs to be supported in recognizing the mistake that maybe they've, erred in maybe, the way that they've summarized or paraphrased, or maybe the way they've erred in terms of their citations. So only when, things really, they are repeating on the part of the student, that's when then we then come and we say that, this is where we started, you were involved here, and now a decision is going to be made to say, probably you are getting a suspension or you are excluded and so forth. But I would like to believe that in every situation that I've been, where we are even getting people from the industry, the voice of the student is always there. Because we, as Unisans, as academics, we believe that in whatever we do, our students, they must be at the center. Our job is to serve the student, to support the student, because at the end of the day, we are winning because our students are winning. Thank you.
So I'm going to end this conversation by asking Mr. Dlamini, will you give us a voice from the student side on, do you feel that the governance and higher education is moving in the right direction through ethical leadership? That the voice of the student are today far more important than the voice of 10 years ago?
Thank you very much, the Deputy Registrar, and also greetings to the Chairperson of the SRC, Andy Lendlela. All protocols observed. It's a tricky question, because as the youth, we always say that there's nothing for us without us, And such discussions must center the heart of the youth. When you see our institution, for example, in Unisa, the youth is at the center in all of the structures engagement. We are represented and we are regulated by the statute of the university, whereby we even serve at council. It's where you can see that the youth, we are there contributing as the voice of the youth. But it's very sad when you see in the governmental structure whereby you often go to these settings where the youth are not there in terms of being heard, in terms of their voice, Because we are not spectators in this country. We want to be part and parcel of the decision-making body. Yes, if you can see in this institution, we are regulated by the Higher Education Act, and whereby SRC, they are representing students across the campuses. But when it comes to such discussion, Deputy Registrar, of ethical leadership, whereby us as individuals, us as young people, speaking, we don't, like those who have came before us, practicing those ethical leadership, as we are seeing Madlanga Commission and Brand Mahos and stuff, It does not reflect bad when you are seeing all people that we are supposed to be looking up to not having that ethical leadership. But coming back to the discussion, to the point that you are asking, Deputy Registrar, we are very fortunate as this youth to take charge really in the engagement of placing us as the youth, not being spectators. Because if we are going to, for example, I even highlighted when we speak about Simiso Nkwanyana, which is an SRC member, which is a revolutionary, which speaks directly to us as the youth, us as the SRC, which we must be represented in the engagement that speaks about us, because nothing for us without us. So when we make those cries at Deputy Registrar, we really have to be listening as the youth. And I'm happy that you wanted us to just to say a word, but we don't feel that we are fully represented in every space. I feel like there's a gap whereby young people, when we speak, some people, they think that we are just speaking just because we are making chaos. We don't want to make chaos. We are part of the system whereby we want to bring solutions that is going to benefit us as the youth. So thank you very much, Registrar, for this opportunity.
And please don't leave. So I'm going to end now this discussion, and I want to thank, let's put our hands together for our panel. They have done absolutely superb, and to our students, well done. And I want to leave the audience with a challenge, is to ask ourselves, and then I'm going to put forward a proposal, is that we think that it's always someone else who's going to shape the world. But we don't ever think we're part of that shaping the new world that we want to live in. And last night when Professor Sachs left us with this idea around Africa can be this big role player in the world in the near future, I asked myself, what can we do as a university? And he spoke about incubators. And I'm going to challenge KZN. Joyce, RD, to what extent can we create within KZN an incubator of ethical leadership and for corporate governance, where we bring in the voices of students, and it's not necessarily only Unisa students, of young people in KZN, and we create an incubator in the region for ethical leadership and corporate, and I think Professor Sachs called it global governance, that the UN also struggles to bring from the ground. Why can't KZN shape for us ethical leadership and global governance as an incubator? I'm sure the VP operations is here. He would give us a little bit of space there at the region. Surely there's some space that is not utilized. We can bring in the best minds of the world. We can bring the students in. I'm challenging academics and ask, could we bring in academics in this incubator? Civil citizens, policymakers, students, and Unisa's KZN region, and we develop that incubator. I think we're going to shape the world. Colleagues, I thank all of you, and please remember an incubator, and maybe we can give the ambassador a chairmanship there in that incubator. Colleagues, thank you very much. Have a lovely evening, and thank you for the engagement. And once again, thank you to the panel.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jubier. I'm going to ask that you should not leave the stage. Please remain while I call into the podium Dr. Ndebele, Ambassador Ndebele, if you may come to the podium. Dr. Gina also, Mr. Nkwanyana. I think I must call Mrs. Nkwanyana into this podium also, because it's very important that when we go towards the end of the program that we recognize her as part of the people who are here present today. I'm also going to invite to the stage Dr. Miesa, the VPs, Dr. Chivase, Ndate Matsiaba Bamtebele, Professor Nkosi, and Mr. Simiso Gwala, member of Simiso Nkwanyana Center for Alternative Ideas. I've also noticed former student leader, president of SASCO, Mr. David Maimela, in our midst. There was also the former president of COSATU who's here, Mr. Duma Dlamini, that I noticed. With those words, I'm going to ask Mr. Simiso Gwala with remarks. Mr. Simiso Gwala.
You forgot the speech.
Or I think you forgot the speech. Yeah. Don't you think
the stage is full? The stage is full. Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Are you not proud of you?
Okay. We are going to have a photo session, but also to give our visitors gifts. Tina babuya Unisa Epitoli, even Unisa here KZN region, we are excluded for obvious reasons that we get these gifts every day. So I'm going to ask Babseme that our VPs are here, you can assist us in directing.
The first token of appreciation is for Ambassador to be handed over by our
acting ED, acting VP, VC, acting VC, Dr. Chivase, please.
Assisted by Dr. Miesa.
Yeah, Dr. Miesa, please. Sondela. Yeah. Minga, you might just be. Don't go far. Yeah, please. Thank you very much. The next one, Deputy Minister. She's very friendly. She was asking me about my house address in Pretoria. Mr. Nkwanyana, Kaye, that's for you. And please smile because you are live on air.
Nzimande is next. Dr. Nzimande.
Dr. Nzimande, he said this from AU, is global. UN. Thank you, UN. No, Africa comes first into my mind.
Then the next one is Dr. Kwala.
Dr. Kwala.
Is here.
Before he even performed his duties. This one, the last one, is for the most beautiful lady in the room, Mrs. Nkwanyana.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to ask for a group picture before I hand over to Mr. Simiso Gwala and to Dr. Joyce Mears. Can you assist us?
Let's invite the speaker as well.
The KZN speaker. Angazi wawenza so. Besizwana mawufika manje soshintshile. Sicela uze phambili. Sikufuna esithombeni. Simiso Nkwanyana Center for Alternative Ideas. Then after him, it will be Dr. Joyce Mieza, the Regional Director of KwaZulu-Natal. As for me and myself, I'll see you next year again. Thank you very much. There is a biggest mistake that I've committed, an omission of note. I was not alone. I was with Sianda Mkize and Hlonichwa Nyembezi, who are our sign language interpreters and experts. Thank you very much.
Good evening, colleagues. Before I start my speech, let me lodge a formal protest. The program director has taken my title away, and he is calling me Mr. I think he needs to come back and correct that. But that's on a lighter note. Colleagues, let me greet all alliance partners, starting with the SACP. I saw members of the Central Committee and all structures going down. The ANC and COSATU, I saw the Provincial Secretary. Our guest speaker, the ambassador, and let us thank Simiso for ensuring that you finally get your degree certificate. So he continues to be a negotiator on the other side. Let us thank let me greet Dr. Nomalungelo Gina, who's the Deputy Minister, the Speaker of the Legislature, Ms. Nontembeko Boyce, the representative of Dr. Buleng, Dr. Azwi Chivase, the Acting Vice Principal, all our panelists, the Simiso Nkwanyana Institute, and on a special note, let us greet the Nkwanyana family. Mrs. Nkwanyana, the son and the daughter, Olwetu and Wandisiwe. Let me protest a bit. The front table is actually loud. Can you tone it down, please? My ears are too sharp. Olwetu is a DUT graduate in IT. And I think if employers and Unisa has a post in IT, you've got a graduate here. Wandisiwe is a UJ final year student in environmental management, which actually shows Ugutu Simiso was really serious about education. But I think it's important to thank Ugcina for ensuring the infants that Simiso left are now adults who can fend for themselves. And we really owe you a great debt of gratitude for ensuring ukuthi zikhulile ingane njengamanje, and ensuring ukuthi you continue the legacy of Simiso. Simiso would have turned around 54 this year, which really shows that when he did all these things that we are talking about, he was young. I've had my young colleagues there who are students. A lot of the things that Simiso did, he did in his youth. And when he passed away, he was still very youthful. So, which shows that I think your limitation is all up to you. Ubabundebele never saw Simiso as a young person. He saw him as a leader in his own right. So it becomes very important that we actually remember that. And this year would have marked almost 23 years since his departure. And Simiso was not scared to put his ideas down to paper. He used to carry what we call for choir, and he was left-handed. And in that for choir, he wrote everything that he wanted to write. So at that time, we had floppy disk, the big one before the floppy disk. So those things used to get infected. So he had to make sure that when things are typed, he also has a backup in that for choir. Simiso was instrumental in the penning of what we know today as a medium-term vision of the SACP, amongst many who ended up contributing to have that document. So he was an intellectual of sort. And I think as we remember him, we must remember that he actually was not scared to engage you. Smith was a politician and a family man, as well articulated by the main speaker, Dr. Ndebele. He was an organic leader of both the ANC and the SACP. And at some point, he led the election machinery of the ANC. And there was no question that he was the best candidate to actually be nominated to lead that. And he excelled on it. And as the SACP leader, for him, there was never any conflict in leading the ANC and the SACP, and at the same time being critical of these organizations. When he saw something wrong, he would actually voice it out. The theme for this lecture speaks of ethical leadership in higher education. Simiso Nkwanyana was a very simple man. He was one man you could not hide. I think if he was outside, you would hear his laugh. He actually laughed very loud. So you could not hide him anywhere. And those who knew him, you would know that that is Simiso laughing. And we are saying he was a simple man and a leader beyond his time. He was youthful, yet he appealed to both the young and the old. He valued family, community, and his party that he was leading, the SACP. Citing his practical expression on ethical leadership, one evening we were working late at the office. We worked until about 10 p.m. So when we left the office, he offered to take me home, as I did not have a car at that moment. When we passed to Gobble Road by the station, there was a lady who was standing there. Just let me take you back 23 years back. I'm not sure if the cell phones were there. I didn't have a cell phone at that time. So the lady was standing, it's around 10, at the bus stop. And he said, you know what, let us take this lady home. So he stopped and we offered a lift. And we asked her, where do you stay? And the lady said, no, I stay at Induzum. And Simiso stayed in Newlands. I stayed at Inand. So he dropped the lady at Induzum, dropped me, and then came back to Newlands. He said, I would not feel good to hear in the news the following day that something bad had happened to the lady. And that was Simiso, a simple man. And today, how many of us would offer a stranger a lift and take them home when there's a high level of gender-based violence and there's lots of femicide going on? How many of us would follow in the footsteps of Simiso? It is unfortunate that near that spot where he picked up that lady, it's where he breathed his last breath. It's unfortunate, maybe coincidental, but we thank eThekwini Municipality for naming that road, Gobble Road, after him. And we are hoping the municipality will come on board and ensure that it continues to honor Simiso in all its public places. We are grateful for the partnership as Simiso Nkwanyana Center for Alternative Ideas. We are really honored for the invaluable work that Unisa has put into this third annual memorial lecture, including the preceding two. As we walk together in this journey, we believe that Simiso would have been happy to see this partnership grow. And as the Institute, we are hoping that at some point we would see funding that will allow students who do not have money to study for free at Unisa, and mostly rural and disadvantaged students, because Miso kwakumuntu wasemakhaya. Secondly, I think the panelists did a great job, but what we would love is to extend that and advance it, so that the theme of today, which was ethical leadership in higher education, this panel discussion will form a base of papers that would be invited by the institution for that particular year. And then people, both academics and non-academics, will be contributing, so that you've got a publication in what will ultimately be a journal. I know you speak about peer-reviewed. It's fine, it's okay. Peer-reviewed, published once a year, to actually advance those ideas and keep them in a portal of history. I think as we are speaking about the research chair, those are some of the tasks that we think the research chair should actually think about and encapsulate in what they would be doing. As Simiso was a person from Emakhaya, today I think a number of people, including students, there's a digital divide. When I first went to university, I could not type. I had never seen a computer, I had never seen anything. But my first assignment, I had to stay in the lab, throughout the night for about 4 days, because I was nominated to actually be the one who was going to type that assignment, and I could not type. So can you imagine a student who's coming from Hlabuya Lingana who has never seen a computer or a lab, a science lab? So that digital divide, I think it's one of the things that we think the institution, Unisa, and the institute can actually do. But furthermore, there are a number of workers, as we're talking about the digitization of work, AI and all that is happening today. It becomes important that we intervene to actually retrain some of the workers so that they keep up with advances instead of being retrenched. So I think the institution can play quite a very a pivotal role in that. And lastly, within these discussions and academics that I think were introduced here, one of them, we can spark interest and the light to research and ultimately come up with a book to honor Simiso. I think this is the third year. Probably in the next 5, 10, we should be able to achieve this. But as I conclude, as we remember Simiso, let us fight against pseudo-democracy, pseudo-leadership. In our organizations, organs of state, let us fight against ticking boxes, calling people when decisions are already taken. There is only rubber stamping to those decisions. I'm very critical of our IDP. We call people, mostly decisions are taken, or decisions that were taken are never implemented. Very critical when you consult students, but as management, we've already taken decisions. We consult workers, but we've already taken decisions. Or leaders of workers have already taken decisions in collusion with management. This can also expand to when you've got meetings. You know, most of the time you sit in meetings, you take decisions, but when a decision matrix comes back, you wonder, was I in this meeting that took that decision? So we must be very skeptical of such leadership. Everywhere in our organizations, in our movement, and in our workplaces. So as we conclude, let us watch out, let us be careful, because it is not democracy unless we take decisions and we implement them. Thank you.
Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I know that at this stage you really want to ensure that this is wrapped up. It was going to be like 50 pages. I prepared 50 pages, but I'm going to cut it down to at least 25. Dear colleagues and distinguished guests, I would like to offer a truly heartfelt thank you to everyone who made today's program such a tremendous success. We were deeply honored by the presence and continued guidance of our Vice Chancellor, Acting Vice Chancellor. A special note of appreciation goes to our keynote speaker, Ambassador Ndebele, for his insightful address, and to all our panel discussants for their valuable contributions. To the Nkwanyana family, Mrs. Nkwanyana, the children, and the entire family, thank you for your incredible grace and support throughout. Your presence was deeply felt. We were also thrilled and grateful to welcome special guests not listed on the formal program, including the Speaker of the KZN Legislature and the MECs. Your time and support added significant value to the day. Finally, thank you to the teams in the Office of the Vice Chancellor, Institutional Advancement, and Regional Communications. Your commitment behind the scenes made everything possible. And to all of you who attended, thank you for sharing your valuable time and enriching this occasion with us. Our guests who need parking tickets must come to the desk at the back. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.